How's it going, everyone? Alex here. So we're going to be covering a trifecta of devices today. There's a few things I really want to talk about, and the first one we're going to start talking about is a new Turnip driver. This is R21, and we're going to be using Yuzu here. This is the last version of Yuzu. I know there's newer forks such as suYu and so on, which I've not really been using much. I have suYu, haven't tested it very much, but this is R21. And what I saw on the GitHub page was supposedly a decent improvement. And what I ended up testing actually surprised me. I'm not sure if I'm just a little confused, but I feel like I tested Tears of the Kingdom recently when I was checking it between my GEEK 1S and this. I'm just going to go through my settings here so you can see what I've done with my games, so you can have exactly the same experience. Cube B output engine. I've been changing that ever since Retroid Pocket 4 Pro, just because if there is some slowdown with the game, I kind of want to rule out the audio. But yeah, update 1.21, and here I've left the game running for like 5-10 seconds, and it has just started to just scooch up to 30 frames, and it starts feeling really smooth. And I remember coming to certain locations like this and thinking, wait a minute, Tears of the Kingdom is not running very well. Whereas here, because I've been testing it on the 1S recently with the Lossless Scaling program, I was like, this game doesn't run very well on Yuzu on a PC handheld with these specs that seems like it should. But here, with Turnip R21, a bit of slowdown here as I look at the castle, but then it starts to even out again, and this is basically my whole experience of Tears of the Kingdom. I've tried to test some different locations here. I'm using the save file I had on my PC. I don't really play this game on my Odin, so at some point I would have cleared and deleted my caches. So we're loading new areas, new caches. So there'll be moments where it's going to load in the cache and then or try and build it. So here's an example of this location, which I probably tested once before, but I deleted my caches. So as I fly in, it's going to be a little bit slow, but as it builds the cache, it's just steadily going to go back up to 30 frames. And I'm like, well, this is pretty damn impressive. I feel like my memory of this in different videos I've done, in particular, there's one place, AYANEO Village, where I would wait and watch it build, and it would just hover around 20 frames. But we're going to see later that it just sticks to about 30. So I have, because there is no updates to Yuzu, since it has been shut down, I have to say this is all down to the Turnip driver. And I'm not entirely surprised, because it was only a few drivers ago that Dragon's Dogma became fully playable. There was a huge lighting issue that meant that shadows were flickering in and out, and although it was playable, it didn't look fantastic. But then I think it was R18, I can't quite remember, but suddenly that game looks gorgeous, and now it's suddenly playable. So it doesn't surprise me that some optimization with a driver is allowing a game to function a little better. But seeing as Yuzu has shut down, I was pretty blown away by this, and it's one of the reasons I wanted to do this video. I love showing a little bit more content of the Odin 2, any more reason to enjoy it anymore, because I think even at the start of Nintendo Switch emulation on Android, we always knew that the Odin 2 would be a very powerful handheld, so it was just about emulation updates and optimizations. So as it catches up with the hardware, it's definitely more powerful than the Nintendo Switch, so we're all looking forward to that moment when Nintendo Switch will be perfect. And there are different forks. I haven't really felt like testing Nintendo Switch emulation. I feel like I'm very comfortable with the amount of games I have on here. There's a lot of them, and they all work very well. I recently played Metroid Dread completely on the Odin 2, and it worked fantastically. This is Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening. Just quickly showed the add-ons I have there. Took away that annoying depth of field. We have 60 FPS, and we have the newest update. So this is one where people, I read, and they swore that it ran perfectly. So the whole point of this is that this game doesn't look good if you use NCE, which is what helps a lot of games to run a lot better. So this is running on the normal compiler, and then so what people were saying is that they were able to get this game running really smooth with the 60 FPS mod, and then using the original compiler, and that's pretty much it. But every time I entered this village at the start of the game, I always encountered slowdowns, and it wasn't very nice. But this experience right now, I mean, I could be wrong, and people will probably tell me in the comments that they've been able to get this game running fine, but my experience right now is I logged onto the game, I used Turnip R21, and this feels like the first time I've seen this game just running really smooth. And the fact it's not using NCE is, yeah, it's quite crazy, really. Yeah, I just remember people from Discord saying they got this game running really well, and I did exactly what they did, and it wasn't running well for me, so... I wanted to show off a little bit of Super Monkey Ball here. This is a brand new game. This is a game that released after Yuzu had shut down, so it's one of those games that's like, probably won't run, but it runs really great. I remember at first I had some problems opening it up, and I switched around drivers, but and then I didn't have any problem at all. It probably runs, I wouldn't say smoother, because it runs really smooth. Like, I've never really seen the game dip as I played this, but it might be a little better to play it on Suyu. When it comes to these forks, I don't know, like, for example, the game Animal Well. Animal Well does not run on Yuzu, but it runs on Suyu. Anyway, Super Mario 3D World, I wanted to test this, so I'm going to set it up so that docked mode is on when I start it, because when you play Bowser's Fury in docked mode, it goes from a 30 FPS game to a 60 FPS game. So, I'm pretty sure my memory in the past is that Bowser's Fury just about ran good at 30 frames, and that was pretty much all we could expect. But I didn't really test it too much over time in docked mode, so I thought I'd have a look at it now in docked mode, the latest Turnip driver, and honestly, there's a lot of moments where it runs at 60, but there's a lot of dips to about 50, 45, and some games that's not really a problem. If you could hard lock this game to 50 frames, that would probably be really nice, but Mario is a, like, well, I won't say precision platformer, but there's a lot of platforming involved, and the smoothness does help. So there's a moment here where, like, just you can see in the top left now, it's dropping down to 40 frames, but this is a lot going on the screen. I didn't actually test, like, Mario fighting Bowser in their giant forms, but I felt kind of surprised that the performance of this was as good as it was. Anyway, onto the second device now. The RG35XX SP. So I recently just got some Sakura retro modding stuff. I really liked this Final Fantasy VII thing he had going. So you got like the Mako green buttons, and there's a card. I took some pictures in some light, so you can see it's actually a lot nicer to see in a well lit area. So this was out in my garden. But yeah, it's quite gorgeous. And I recently decided to put muOS on this device with a brand new SD card, because to be honest, I'm mostly interested in the fact that the sleep mode is working as well as it does. I was just testing the buttons there to see how they found. So I had actually done the masking tape or tape mod where you make the buttons quieter. I actually removed a little bit of the tape from my buttons when I installed the new buttons in, and I really like the feel of them now. Just quickly gonna have a look at the settings here, and there's a lot of settings to like play around with. There's a decent brightness feature. We can set how the device starts up, so you flip it open, turn it on. Will it go to the menu? Will it go back to the game? But the sleep shutdown is really interesting because you can set it to shut down after a certain amount of time it's gone to sleep. So, you know, if you shut it, forget about it, you don't want it to waste power, then it will just shut down after a certain amount of time. But you can see here, as it reaches a certain point when I close the lid, it actually goes to sleep. And it's not like the stock OS. The sleep function here works properly so that it's not draining unnecessary battery. It will properly sleep and put the game to sleep, and you can open it and play it like you used to. And obviously if you've left it too long, it will just shut down. But you can set it in these settings so that when you start the whole system up, it will just resume game and resume a save state or an automatic save state that you had. I just had a look at some themes. There are a lot of themes you can download on GitHub, but the thing I was going to get to now is that there's something called Portmaster, and it's nothing new, but like, I haven't looked at this on my channel yet, but you can play games like Stardew Valley, and there's a bunch of cool ones. I actually got my PC saves on here, so this is a farm I did on PC, and it was, I'm going to leave some links to how you can do all this stuff, because it's not just simple. You can... with muOS, you get a version of Portmaster with it, and then if you set your SP to go online, so connect to a network, and then you can use Portmaster to download the ports. But the thing is, with a game like Stardew Valley, what you're downloading is like the kind of like the folder it needs to find it on the device, but then you need to own Stardew Valley, for example, on the Steam. So you would then go, for example, to Steam, go to Stardew Valley, right-click it, go down to betas, and then you select a compatibility version. And by downloading this compatibility version, you will have that on your PC, and then you'll transfer that to a specific folder on your muOS folder in the SD card. But yeah, I will link the guide I looked at to do this. There's already some very good video guides and written guides for all this stuff, so you might as well just use those. But yeah, Stardew is something you would need to own, so you can copy those over. Shovel Knight Treasure Truck, I can't remember what it's called. This was a little bit different. Instead of downloading, well, obviously you own the game on Steam, but instead of downloading a compatibility version, for example, you had to use the Steam console so that you were able to down a Linux depository, and it's the Linux depository we had to use to get this game running. I didn't show much footage here, I just wanted to show you that it's working. I had a little look at Shovel Knight Showdown, which was another option in the game. I haven't even heard of this, but it's like confused me a bit. There was this target mode here, and I was like, wait, is this like Shovel Knight Smash Bros? I had no idea what this is. I only played the original Shovel Knight. I never played all the other games. AM2R here. Very, very cool that we can have this on a device like this. This was pretty simple. You downloaded AM2R from the Portmaster list, and you basically have to find the APK, which is an Android version of AM2R, and then add that to the database of the game. So you would download AM2R, then you would take the SD card out, put it in your PC, you would find the port folder, and inside you see AM2R, and inside there is like a database folder that you would chuck your game data in. So again, I'll leave a guide so that you can see this. So with muOS, besides the functionality of the OS, I wasn't really too concerned about like performance of different emulators. I didn't think, oh, I'm going to get this OS because I think it plays, for example, PSP better. I actually found with N64, it seemed to be a little hit and miss in places. This seems like I have a few more core options available. So I didn't want to go too deep into this, but I just wanted to do this video where I said I'm downloading MUS, there's some things I like about it, and then I thought, let me go into PSP for a little bit, because it might be something that people are interested in. In this case, I put it full screen because I feel like it's not that big a deal. Kind of looks like a 4-3 game, doesn't bother me too much. Runs pretty nice, runs close to 60, but there are a lot of PSP games that do not run on the SP. So I thought here I would compare it to the PSP Go, which is of similar size. Well, not really. I mean, from a length perspective, but like it's way thinner and way more pocketable. You know, it's like a tiny little phone, and I am a big advocate of PSP Go. You can see here I've got this menu where I've overclocked the CPU to go as high as possible. So I'm trying Outrun on here, which I don't think on a natural PSP would run anywhere near 60. I don't have a frame rate open here, but I could definitely tell that it was pretty much hitting 60 the whole time. The only problem is when you overclock a device like this, you are using more battery. And if you've seen my video on my PSP Go, which I did earlier this year, this has both a new battery and it also has an SD card mod, so that it is able to use an SD card for its memory card and has so much more space for games. So there's loads and loads and loads of PSP games on here on original hardware, which you can never ever beat, really. So, I mean, it's obvious to tell here, for example, compared to the SP, that the screen is definitely not as good quality as the SP. You can kind of see, I don't want to say scan lines, because it's not what it is, but the way this video is recording, you can just kind of tell this is a lower quality. But there's just something, me personally, there's something really special about the Go, and if I had to talk to people who are like, I can only buy one device, if the PSP catalog was important to you, the PSP Go, I think, definitely has a place. I got out my Retro Pocket 3 Plus and realized I don't have an SD card in there. It's all internal storage, so I don't have any PSP games on there. But I basically modeled this after a PSP, and I love it. And to me, that is a PSP machine. But with the Retro Pocket 4 and 4 Pro, it's almost no point even looking at the 3 Plus because you have a more powerful device. The ergonomics of this device are better because the buttons are in better places. You know, you haven't got buttons on the side of the device. You haven't got paws on the top of the device, but the 3 Plus does have a special place in my heart. I really like that device. For some reason, I like it more than the 4. So this is the Pro, and it's running Outrun at 60 frames, no problem, higher resolution. So it looks, out of the 3 I've just shown, it looks really good. But if I was to recommend the Retro Pocket 4 at all, I would probably recommend the 4 over the Pro, just because you're saving $50 and it probably still run a fair amount of Switch games, whereas the Pro might do a little bit more. But I think it would be cool to do a comparison between the two, but my impression is that I would enjoy the 4 over the Pro out of price to performance wise. So the last device of the Trifecta, this is AYANEO GEEK 1S, and I wanted to show, I did a video, my last video I did actually was on Lossless Scaling, and I've just turned this on. So Batman was running at 30 frames on this device, and now with Lossless Scaling, we are using a feature that allows for 2 times frame generation. So we're now reaching 60 frames, and the game is a lot smoother. And I have been playing Batman for the last week, and I remember when I got the GEEK 1S, I was looking at a catalogue of games on my Steam library, and I was like, you know what, a device like this is perfect for like PC games between 2005 and 2015. So older, like Xbox 360 kind of games, early PS4 kind of games. So there's a lot of great games in that sort of like decade range. I remember looking at Arkham Knight, and this is not like a very known to be good port. You know, it's had its problems. It was even taken off the Steam store at one point when it was originally launched, and it took nearly a year to come back with a port that was like kind of better, but in people's eyes, taking an extra year to not make a perfect port is just like, well, you know, it's kind of like rubbing salt in the wound. So difficult to run game. And without lossless scaling, I originally was trying to lower the settings of this game and run this on this device and try and reach 60 frames, and it was never successfully doing it. It was like 60 at times, but it would often dip. Now with lossless scaling, we're able to do 2 times frame generation, and so the game is running like a 30 FPS game, but it looks like a 60 FPS game. So depending on the type of game, now I've tested lossless scaling now on my main 4K gaming rig, and I could definitely feel the difference between a 60 and 120 FPS game. But I feel like lossless scaling has an amazing sweet spot in this area in handheld gaming, especially Windows. So I have to state that this is for Windows. If you want to use the Steam Deck for the Steam Deck, you can't unless you either dual boot with Windows or replace SteamOS with Windows. It can only work with Windows. So a device like this, which is the AYANEO GEEK 1S, it's perfect. It will work on the Asus ROG Ally. If you have the Ally X, the new one, is it? Yep, it will work on that too. You could bump 60 frame games to 120, but it's kind of demanding. So in this case, what I did is I got Arkham Knight to run as best as it could at 30 frames. So we have settings up high and it's looking gorgeous, and then we're using lossless scaling to achieve basically 30 frames for free. So it looks really good, but because of the kind of game it is, I don't feel like I'm sacrificing gameplay. It just works. And I've done this with GTA 4 as well, a game that also is well known to not be a good PC port. I set things up high at 30 frames, use lossless scaling to get it up to 60. It's just really great. And with this video, I just come to this realization that the RG35XX SP and the Odin 2 and the GEEK 1S are like a perfect trifecta for me. The SP is something I chuck in my bag. I love the modded feel. muOS is really good. The Odin 2 is just a goat of an Android handheld, great battery, can do lots of switch and so on. And now with lossless scaling on my GEEK One X, I can achieve really fluid gameplay on all kinds of PC games, depending on how I set them up. But yeah, there's always a place for real hardware. So I have a soft spot for the PSP, I have a soft spot for the Vita, I have a soft spot for the 3DS. But I thought it was a neat video to show these three things and where we're kind of at now. So if you like that video, please give it a like, hit that subscription button, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.